The series opens with Sophie preparing for her first day as a consultant at a traditional publishing house that is struggling to keep up with the modern world. Determined and ambitious, she arrives ready to make changes. Upon entering the office, she meets the company's charismatic but slightly chaotic CEO, Ronnie, and quickly organizes a meeting to introduce herself to the staff and outline her vision. However, the meeting is interrupted when Max, a temporary IT technician, arrives late and casually disrupts the already tense atmosphere. His carefree attitude immediately clashes with Sophie's structured personality. Not long after, Sophie retreats to her office, only to be disturbed by loud drilling noises coming from the walls. She discovers that Max is responsible for the chaos, working during office hours without considering the employees around him. Frustrated, she firmly instructs him to carry out his technical work outside regular business hours so the staff can focus. Later, she meets with Friedrich, the literary director, and Denise, the head of public relations, discussing the urgent need to modernize the company, which is still operating with outdated manual systems rather than efficient digital tools. That evening, Sophie returns home and shares her thoughts with her husband, Johann. She explains that the publishing house has potential but requires significant effort and structural changes. Beneath her confident exterior, however, Sophie is clearly under pressure. Late at night, seeking distraction from her stress and anxiety, she privately indulges in watching adult content, a secret habit that reveals a more vulnerable and restless side of her personality. The following day at work, the tension between Sophie and Max continues as another round of noise interrupts the office. Sophie once again confronts him, insisting that his work schedule must not interfere with productivity. But later that evening, after everyone has left, Sophie stays behind at the office. Feeling overwhelmed, she again turns to private distractions, unaware that Max has noticed her behavior. In a bold and mischievous move, he secretly photographs her without her knowledge. The next day, Max confronts Sophie outside her office, hinting that he knows her secret. Calm but teasing, he suggests that he has documented everything. Shocked and alarmed, Sophie tries to regain control of the situation. After looking into his background, she discovers that Max comes from a modest financial situation. Believing she can manipulate the power dynamic, she offers him money in exchange for deleting the photos from his phone. But Max refuses to be intimidated. Instead of accepting the money, he proposes something unexpected, that she invite him to lunch. Reluctantly, Sophie agrees. During lunch, Max playfully questions her about her private habits, pushing her out of her comfort zone. Before the conversation can go further, Sophie's friend interrupts them. Max later assures her that he deleted the photos, but Sophie remains suspicious. Taking matters into her own hands, she briefly takes his phone, feeling a strange sense of victory afterward, though the tension between them has only deepened. Meanwhile, chaos brews elsewhere in the office as Denise and Friedrich begin arguing over inappropriate messages that have appeared on their personal accounts. Believing they may have been hacked, they turn to Max for technical assistance, unaware that he may be more involved in the unfolding drama than they realize. When Denise and Friedrich turn to Max for technical help regarding the suspicious messages, he casually explains that he needs his phone to properly investigate the issue. Only then does Sophie realize that he cleverly orchestrated the entire situation just to retrieve it from her. Instead of feeling defeated, she finds herself strangely impressed by his intelligence and boldness. There is something unpredictable about him that both irritates and excites her. Soon after, Sophie walks into the restroom, carefully applies a bold shade of lipstick, and returns to Max. In an unexpected move, she hands the lipstick to him and tells him that this particular color represents her. Then she asks how she might retrieve it from him. Max is confused by her behavior but keeps the lipstick anyway, sensing that this is the beginning of something unusual between them. The next day, Max escalates the situation by sending Sophie an envelope through the secretary. Inside is a new rule to what is now clearly becoming a private game between them. He explains that whoever possesses the lipstick has the power to give the other a challenge, and the other person must complete it without objection. His first demand is simple but risky: Sophie must yell at someone in the office, and it cannot be him. Caught off guard, Sophie scans the office for a suitable target. The only available person is the secretary, who appears to have left early without permission. Sophie prepares to confront her, only to be reminded that she had already approved the early departure herself. Confused but secretly amused, Sophie returns to her office and notices Max watching her with quiet satisfaction. The tension between them now feels playful, charged, and increasingly dangerous. The following morning, Sophie storms out of the publishing house in frustration but accidentally collides with a cyclist outside. As they argue, Max rushes over after hearing her voice. He calmly gathers the scattered papers and, without saying much, returns the lipstick to her, signaling that it is now her turn to make a demand. That evening, Sophie attends a party with her husband, Johann, but she feels out of place. Johann's subtle remarks and dismissive tone in front of his friends make her feel small and unappreciated. Seeking an outlet for her growing frustration, she turns back to the game with Max. She messages him with a new challenge. During the next day's important meeting at the publishing house, he must deliberately create chaos and disrupt the atmosphere. The next day, just as the meeting is underway, cleaning staff unexpectedly enter the room. The employees are confused and embarrassed when they learn that Max falsely informed the cleaners that Sophie had invited them for coffee as a gesture of gratitude. The meeting is thrown into awkward disarray, and Max successfully completes her challenge. Later, he walks into Sophie's office, takes the lipstick from her hand, and silently signals that the next move belongs to him. That evening, Max sends a message demanding that Sophie arrive at work early the next day dressed like a 1990s pop star. Though hesitant, Sophie agrees. The following morning, she shocks the entire office with her bold and eccentric outfit. Everyone stares, except Max, who watches her with satisfaction. After thanking him for fulfilling her previous challenge, she hands the lipstick back. But in a spontaneous burst of triumph, Max suddenly kisses her outside on the street, celebrating the thrill of their growing game. What began as harmless teasing is now crossing invisible boundaries, pulling them both deeper into a dangerous mix of power, rebellion, and desire. As the tension between Sophie and Max continues to grow, Sophie is called to her daughter Isabella's school. There, she meets Isabella's teacher, who explains that although Isabella performs exceptionally well academically, she tends to be withdrawn and doesn't easily connect with other children her age. The teacher gently suggests that Sophie pay closer attention to her daughter's emotional world. The conversation lingers in Sophie's mind, subtly reminding her that while she is chasing excitement elsewhere, her family life is quietly shifting. In the days leading up to the publishing house's book fair, Sophie realizes that her hotel room is directly across from Max's. Since she still has possession of the lipstick, and therefore the power in their secret game, she decides to make her next move. She leaves a note on Max's door challenging him to do something bold at the book fair, something that will capture everyone's attention. Max does not disappoint. During the event, he suddenly cuts off the lights, throwing the entire venue into confusion before disappearing into the chaos. Later, he casually returns as if nothing happened, and Sophie congratulates him, clearly thrilled by his daring act. Back in her room that night, Sophie waits, expecting him to make another move. Instead, she hears faint sounds from the hallway. Peering through the peephole, she sees Max standing outside her door, hesitant and restless. The game between them is no longer just playful rebellion, it is becoming something deeper and more personal. The following day, during a press conference tied to the book fair, the staff gathers for lunch. Sophie notices Max chatting with the secretary and unexpectedly feels a sharp wave of jealousy. Leaning close to him, she quietly challenges him to make the lunch more interesting. Unsure at first, Max impulsively decides to spike the desserts with a substance meant to cause temporary disorientation. He discreetly warns Sophie not to eat any of it. As the staff enjoys the sweets, the press conference quickly spirals out of control. Friedrich and Denise begin arguing, tensions flare, and one by one the employees grow dizzy and eventually lose consciousness, leaving only Sophie and Max fully aware of what has happened. In that surreal moment, the two share a silent understanding that their reckless game has crossed yet another line. The next day, Sophie asks Max to join her at the pool. Away from the office and its pressures, they allow themselves to relax. The playful tension transforms into intimacy, and back at the hotel, they give in to their attraction for the first time. What started as a power struggle has now evolved into a full-blown affair. After the book fair ends, the staff returns to the publishing house. But Max quickly realizes that Sophie has been absent, choosing to work from home for 3 weeks. Feeling confused and hurt, he repeatedly tries to contact her, but she avoids responding. Eventually, he shows up at her house unannounced and confronts her about the sudden distance. Sophie admits that what they are doing is wrong, yet confesses that she feels powerless around him. The emotional pull between them is undeniable, and they resume their relationship. Their fragile secrecy is suddenly threatened when Johann arrives home unexpectedly and notices Max. Thinking quickly, Sophie lies and claims that Max is there to repair the dishwasher. Max plays along, pretending to fix the appliance, but the humiliation and tension become too much for him. Frustrated, he leaves, deciding he should cut ties with her altogether. The next day at work, Sophie approaches him and apologizes. Despite his anger, Max forgives her. He invites her to his shared apartment, where they spend the day together in a more personal and honest setting. There, Max reveals a vulnerable side of himself, explaining that his mother disapproves of him and sees him as irresponsible and immature, someone who never takes life seriously. The following morning, Sophie returns to the publishing house, but her growing closeness with Max has not gone unnoticed. The secretary begins observing their interactions more carefully, and it becomes clear that their secret may not remain hidden for long. As rumors begin to circulate around the office, the secretary subtly warns Max that Sophie could face serious consequences for abusing her authority to pursue a relationship with a younger employee. She implies that reporting Sophie would not be difficult. Max, however, refuses to entertain the threat. Instead, he waits for a chance to speak privately with Sophie. Still holding on to the rules of their strange game, Sophie offers Max the lipstick once more, but this time with a condition. She asks him to attend his mother's birthday and allow her to be part of it. Max agrees. Meanwhile, at home, Sophie tries to focus on her family, baking cookies for Isabella. But Johann continues his usual pattern of dismissive remarks, subtly mocking her efforts. Overwhelmed and emotionally drained, Sophie retreats to the bathroom, where she finally breaks down in tears, confronted by the weight of her double life. At his mother's birthday gathering, Max's younger brother curiously asks whether he is seeing someone. Max confidently claims that he is in a relationship with a beautiful woman and even shows a photo of Sophie. His mother is stunned, clearly unsettled by the fact that her son is involved with an older, married woman who has a child. The disapproval is silent but heavy. Back at home, Johann unexpectedly announces that he wants the family to move to London and assumes Sophie will simply leave her job to follow him. He does not ask for her opinion, he presents it as a decision already made. For Sophie, this becomes a breaking point. At the publishing house, she informs Ronnie that she plans to relocate with her husband and daughter. Unbeknownst to her, Max overhears the conversation. Confused and hurt, he confronts her in front of the staff before they step outside to speak privately. In an emotional outburst, Sophie insists that what they have is chaos, not love. She claims she regrets ever meeting him and throws the lipstick away, symbolically ending their game. She tells him there is nothing left between them. Max is devastated. He returns inside, attempting to focus on work, but the emotional shock overwhelms him and he suddenly collapses. When he regains consciousness, he breaks down, unable to hide his pain. At the same time, Sophie is equally heartbroken, silently wishing for something to pull them back together. The next evening, Johann suggests they go out with friends to ease the tension in their marriage. But during the gathering, he once again belittles Sophie, even making a harsh remark about her father in front of everyone. This time, Sophie does not stay quiet. She stands up for herself, responding sharply and publicly rejecting his humiliation. It marks a visible shift in her confidence and self-worth. The following day, in a dramatic and impulsive move, Sophie storms into the publishing house wearing a bathrobe, interrupting an important meeting. Her bold behavior causes further disruption, even leading one employee to tear up a contract in frustration over the company's instability. Amid the chaos, Sophie walks out, and Max follows her. In that moment, Max realizes something important: Sophie did not move to London. Despite everything, she chose to stay. Not because of tradition, not because of expectations, but because she is finally confronting what she truly wants.